So as we just spoke about on the Senate side, we have been redistricted also on the congressional side. As we used to be covered by the 9th District, which is currently held by Congressman Schuster, we are now covered by two congressmen, Congressman Glenn Thompson and Congressman Schuster. So Schuster has more or less the southern end of the county from Mount Union South, and Congressman Thompson has from about Mount Union Borough north. And again, if you'd like to go to the Who is My Legislator and type in your zip code, it will tell you specifically which one of these individuals you'd be able to vote for. So I have before me, and I'm going to keep showing.
It's Kerith, Strano, Taylor. It's a mouthful. I won't make you stumble. Thank you.
Who is running for the 5th Congressional District. And in the primary, again, remember, you would have Democratic and Republican candidates, and depending on your party affiliation, depends on who you vote for, you could also write in. And Kerith is the Democratic ticket. As we also have with us Alanna Hartzok, who is running for the 9th Congressional District. And she is also on the Democratic ticket. So, Kerith, I'd like to give you 3 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you. And thank you for hosting this forum. This is wonderful when folks take a step. Everybody too close? Am I on? Am I on? Okay. It's always refreshing to see folks taking the step to keep people informed about their elections. Because as we know, with lower and lower voter turnout over these years, a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So I want to say thank you for that. It's very, very important. My name is Kerith Strano Taylor. I am from Jefferson County. I don't know how many of you know where Jefferson County is. I live 18 miles from Punxsutawney Phil, and I only take credit for him when he brings me warm weather. Otherwise, I have nothing to do with him. I was born and raised there, and I left high school at 16 and went on to Penn State and graduated at 20. I moved to Washington, D.C. and worked in government affairs for a few years, and then got my law degree and moved home. And I opened a business with my husband and had 2 children, and I had achieved the American dream. My life was wonderful and lovely, and if you've ever been to Brookfield, you'd know why. It's one of those beautiful historic towns. And when I went to send my kids to school, I realized it wasn't the same school district that I had graduated from. 20 years of budget cuts and 20 years of making different choices than what had been made for my generation started to erode the quality of that education, so I ran for school board. And last fall, I was elected as president of my school board, which I'm honored to serve upon. However, in this current budget climate, I would be lying if I didn't say it was challenging. It's even more challenging than it's ever been before. I decided to run for this seat about 4 days into the government shutdown when a National Guardsman was in my office to talk about child support. And he asked me whether he should serve his guard duty that weekend because he had the opportunity to work overtime on Saturday and double time on Sunday. And I knew he had to serve his guard duty, but the fact that he asked me made me pause, and I said, you made a commitment to your country, you have to serve your guard duty. And he looked at me and with a stony face and said, didn't they make a commitment to me? It was the first time I realized that these National Guardsmen and women, and many people in the military, it's the first time that ever occurred to them that they might not be paid. Because of the shutdown at this point, they hadn't decided whether they were going to do that. And it disturbed me. It embarrassed me, to be brutally honest, that these young men and women putting their life on the line, sacrificing their time, were worried about that. So I went to see Congressman Thompson, and I asked him a series of questions because I needed an explanation for these people. And he wasn't able to give me any. And after that hour in his office, searching for answers to bring home to the people that had come into my office that were directly affected by the shutdown, that I had no answers for them, I believe we're entitled to better representation, at least people that can answer the questions. Might not be the answer I wanted, but the fact that there weren't answers forthcoming, I found disturbing. So I started looking into it. I realized the district had been gerrymandered, did my research, started traveling the district, and put my name on it. Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Hartzok?
Alanna Hartzok. I'm also very thankful to be here. I just love being part of the democratic participation process and going around District 9 and getting to know great people who have real concerns. I'm from Franklin County. That's in the southeastern part of District 9. It's just over the mountain from Gettysburg. And I was born and raised in Franklin County. My father was a small business owner. He ran a number of small businesses. My mother did not have to work. We were able to get a nice new house, 3 private college educations, In those days, you could do well with a local-based small business and pay the people who work for you very well. At the age of 55, my dad saw what he calls the big boys coming in, and he sold his business because if he hadn't, he probably would have been undercut by bigger businesses coming from outside. So I'm a different kind of Democrat because I see the value of a local-based economy. I see the value of small businesses. I would like to surely structure our economy so that we have more manufacturing and industrial jobs back in our state and back in our region in District 9 that I would be representing. How to do that? Taxation policy is so important. Taxes is the ability to create or destroy wealth. And right now we've got it harnessed pretty well backwards. In Congress, one first step I would be doing is to work to eliminate these very unfair subsidies that go to very large business interests that are not part of the local-based economy. They are transnational corporations. They've got a lot of control of our government, and also the very big agribusiness. Coming as I do from a small farm area, which is our rural Pennsylvania area, I know that small businesses and small farms want a fair playing field, a fair market economy. Our market economy is not fair. We don't need big government to bail us out. I'm not a big government Democrat. What we need is rules and policies to drive the re-embedding of the economy in our local areas. My daughter is turning 30 this month. She had a good college education. Only this past year did she find a good job. I travel around District 9 and I see too many young people who are hopeless because they can't find good jobs. So we should not be taxing work. We should not be taxing productive capital. We need to untax the real economy, and we need to end these huge multi-billion-dollar subsidies that we're giving away hard-earned taxpayer dollars to a few big corporations.
Thank you. Our first question that we'll address this evening is from the Government Affairs Committee, where we'll talk a little bit about the workforce. Knowing that we're facing an aging population in Pennsylvania, specifically in rural Pennsylvania, and many of those that are getting ready to retire are in the skilled positions, and we're also facing already in our economies the workforce skill gaps. What kind of policies would you like to see developed that would address the workforce pipeline challenges that we face? Ms. Taylor, who first?
Okay. I think we've missed a number of opportunities to fill that gap. When the drilling started in earnest, I'm talking about the deeper drilling that's happening further north in the Commonwealth, there was not a conversation from the federal level downward about the needs that we were going to have to fill these jobs. So we were promised that we were going to get jobs, that was going to be the benefit for the risk that we were taking for the environment. And I don't think anyone can deny that there was a risk to the environment. We're going to be very hopeful that it's not too damaging. And of course, we need to be able to use our resources, but the jobs are what we were promised. And it turns out that our kids aren't working those rigs. Our kids don't know how to work those rigs. Our kids know how to work shallow rigs. So they go to West Virginia, and they go to Tennessee, and they go to New York to work these jobs, and I represent these kids that travel three weeks at a time and come home. So I started asking a lot of these gas companies, why aren't you employing Pennsylvania kids? They said they don't know how to do the work. And I need someone to go on the rig today, so I'm going to hire someone that has that experience. So then I asked the follow-up question, why don't our kids know? So I go back to my school district, right? I'm on my school board. Why didn't we know this? There was never a conversation about it. We run a VOTEC, right? We could have put that plan in place 6 years ago. It takes 2 years to put in a plan and actually start producing kids with the skills that they need. It wasn't a conversation. I don't know how that wasn't a conversation. I wasn't on my school board yet, but that, to me, is a disconnect, a huge disconnect, and a missed opportunity for the people of Pennsylvania. I talked to Congressman Thompson about that. Everybody else knew it was coming in. The drillers were announcing that they were coming months and months and months before they did. So it wasn't that it wasn't on the radar. It just didn't filter down to the place it needed to so that we could start doing serious job training programs. We have folks that want to work. We have folks that want to work. They need the skill base, and with the cuts that we're seeing to education and vocational education, and the cuts are huge. I don't know.
Thank you, Candidate Taylor.
Thank you.
Candidate
I
Hartzok.
think Kerith did touch upon a very big key problem with these big transnational corporations. They really don't care. They don't care that much about we the people. We've lost our democracy to the 35 multi-billionaires who have as much wealth as half our population. And these big transnationals own disproportionate amounts of the Earth's land and resources. When I was talking to Dr. Curry recently in Harrisburg, he is the executive of the Pennsylvania State Education Association. He said that Pennsylvania is absolutely in the pocket of the oil companies, the gas companies. Now, I've been in Nigeria and Bayelsa State, the second largest oil producing state, and I know what resource curse looks like. When you're left with environmental degradation and increasing poverty, and things don't improve even though you're told that this will be development. The Koch brothers are now waging a campaign against solar power in other states to tax solar power. That means you hurt solar power. That means you hurt the businesses, small and local and regional businesses that want to have renewable energy for us. So the bottom line is around taxation policy. The phrase is pay for what you take from the limited gifts of nature, the land and resources that need to be fairly shared to have a fair market economy, and not for what you make. Don't pay in taxes for what you make in the real economy, providing needed goods and services. Don't tax labor and productive capital, but certainly collect the resource rents from companies that are making unearned income because simply of ownership of grossly disproportionate amounts of land and resources. That is a democracy issue. The reason we're having a democracy problem with wealth concentration is we've never formed the rules for economic democracy. This is what I've been working for 30 years. I have an award-winning book that lays out the rules and policies for economic democracy. We can have a fair market economy.
Thank you, Candidate Hartzok. A question on transportation. With concerns about the solvency of the Highway Trust Fund and the potential expiration of MAP 21, the current highway bill later this year, how would you address funding for transportation of all modes? Candidate Hartzok.
Well, I would start by ending a lot of the subsidies. Again, billions of dollars of subsidies. We would have more money on the federal level to fund the things we needed, including our current programs that benefit people. We would have more money to fund the transportation that we need. We need to delineate transportation. That's the responsibility of the federal government. Transportation, the responsibility of state and local government. Roads are already on those different levels. Now, as development proceeds, and this is what I found out as I was exploring why we have such income inequality, wealth inequality, is that when we have any form of successful development, land values increase. Well, if land values increase, housing costs increase, and pretty soon the market doesn't work very well for affordable housing for everybody. So if you put in infrastructure, as you do when you put in roadways, it makes improvements. It's reflected even when you have schools. It's reflected in an increase in land value. This is created by society. This should be captured back. It's part of paying for benefits received to a land site. It's also an amendment to the Borough Code that I worked for several years with state legislators to get passed. It's very important that we not tax our houses in production, but if you do not pay for benefits received to land sites, you open up to land speculation, land hoarding, and profiteering. If you harness it the way that's a proper harnessing of property taxes, you have those buildings that are boarded up and falling apart downtown, you put a heavier tax on the site value, pretty soon productive capital and labor comes along and fixes up those buildings. We know this works. 18 towns and cities in Pennsylvania doing it. The work that I did to get the legislature passed almost unanimously and signed by Governor Ridge allows the 1,000 boroughs of our state to have the same option.
Candidate Taylor.
I'm fascinated by this policy, and I'm willing to give a few moments conversation from my time to make that comment. Transportation, the best time to fix your own house is when the economy is poor, right? When at least when I'm home, when men are laid off, they fix the gutters, right? They work on the roof. That's what they do. They have the time to do it, and they make the improvements that they can afford to make. We did not do that in our nation when we hit the recession. We have a crumbling infrastructure that we haven't paid attention to in decades, and we have bridges that are collapsing. We're a first world nation with bridges that collapse and people fall into rivers, and it seems implausible that it happens, but it does. And I look at our government who just, in a 16-week period, spent $250 million on nothing. Nothing. They paid people who wanted to go to work to not go to work, and they got nothing for it. So I'm watching this government, this Congress, that worked fewer days last year than my child went to school. 112 days they spent in session. My child went to school for 180. And they spent $250 million on nothing over a 16-day period. I don't think they have their priorities right. How do we fund transportation? We start being really smart about the dollars we spend. None of us sit at our table with our budget and say we're going to spend X amount of dollars on nothing. We at least get something for it. Some of it might be entertainment, right? We might all go to the movies. That might be something we don't need, but we budget for it, and we're rational about it, and we make difficult choices. And I don't feel that the folks that are representing us are making those hard choices. When I went to meet with Thompson, and I asked him about the shutdown and if we were going to be open for business in the spring, his words to me were, the shutdown was a joke. That's the perception in Washington, that it was funny. And I'm certain he was being tongue-in-cheek, and I'm certain he thought I was a supporter, but it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny to any of the people that live in my town that are really struggling in this economy. So I'll wait before the red flag comes up. Thank you.
Last question for you ladies this evening. Pennsylvania is often considered to be a business-unfriendly state due to its corporate tax structure and regulatory climate. Both of those statements could be made at the federal level as well. What policies would you like to see developed to overcome these challenges? Candidate Taylor.
I think we have to have a really honest discussion about the net tax paid, because the amount of tax that sits on the books is not the amount of tax that's paid. GE pays nothing. No federal taxes whatsoever. And they're one of the most profitable companies in the United States. Do I begrudge them a profit? No. But I think we would be foolish to not look and examine the structure that we have. The tax structure that we have incentivizes businesses to spend millions of dollars a year on lobbyists to draft legislation that they can carve around their business. If individuals had that power, we would have a much better tax structure, but we don't. I mean, I'm an attorney. My job is to read code and to help people navigate through the system. That's what we do. And any company, large company that can afford it, would be foolish to not do the same thing. So to say that it's unfriendly to business, and we have a Delaware loophole. Pennsylvania companies aren't really Pennsylvania companies. Many of them incorporate in Delaware, so they pay no taxes in the Commonwealth. They're not giving to us, right? They come and do business here, and they take it somewhere else. So the idea that we are not friendly to corporations, I think, begs the question of what the next net tax paid in is, because it's not so prohibitive that companies aren't opening. Small businesses aren't opening because people are struggling to make ends meet. We don't have an economy that's encouraging people to do that. My parents had a small business. They struggled for years, but that was the business they had. Fortunately, I was able to get an education that made my start of my own business a little bit easier for me, and I'm thankful for that. But in Brookville, my little town of 3,800 people, we have 165 families who go to the food bank every week. These people aren't proud to go there, but they have hungry kids, and they have no better option. So if we don't start driving our economy, I'm not quite so certain what's on the other end of it. So I think we need to examine our tax structure.
Thank you, Candidate Taylor. Candidate
And on you go, right?
And on you go. This is great, because I love the issues I hope you do that we're bringing up, because we have a serious problem here. It doesn't really seem to matter what party is in the presidential seat. The wealth just keeps gushing to the top, and the people are getting poor, and the middle class is collapsing. We've had other pivotal moments in democracy when we had to make great advances. We had to have the vote extended to more and more people. People of my gender could vote only less than 100 years ago. And now this is a big step we have to think through to take back, really, our democracy from really big money interests. And these are global interests. and how do we embed in the local economy. So it's not a matter of taxing business or not taxing business. What are we taxing? What are they doing? Are they financial speculators? Are they real estate speculators? Are they providing goods and services that are needed, like housing? We need better housing. We need basic things, food. People are going to the food bank. They don't have the purchasing capacity. So all the more reason why we have to get taxes off of wages, off of work, off of lower income people. And that will then drive what I'm calling a fair market economy. Take the subsidies off of the big businesses. Income tax used to be on very high, not even income, but owners of massive amounts of the big capital and the big resource companies. Has gone down to a wage tax. So taxes are really important to look at. Small business economy, local economy means one thing, looking at import replacement. What are we buying out there from far, far away, and what can we make here? Let's make it really exciting and really fun to buy local. And let's have lots more ways we can exchange our goods and services. We should not be limited because we don't have cash dollars. We have the internet that can bring us all kinds of high-tech barter systems and trade systems. And when we're not taxing our work and our sales, I don't think we should tax sales of basic needs.
Thank you.
Then we can drive a fair local economy. Thank you.
Our last section this evening, we give each of you 2 minutes to wrap up any loose ends that you haven't had an opportunity to address, or any thoughts that have come to mind as we've addressed these questions with you. I would like to note, however, that the House is in session this evening. That is one of the things that prevented Congressman Thompson and Congressman Schuster from joining us this evening. I did fail to mention that at the beginning of this session. So, candidate Hartzok, would you like to start with your 2 minutes?
Well, we hear about tea parties these days, and maybe we hear about coffee parties on the Democratic side. But I think we really need to go beyond the diversity, not the diversity, the competitiveness that's getting us bogged down on the federal level. I mean, we really need, I'm also a mental health counselor, and I'm trained in conflict resolution. That might be another reason to put me in Congress. If you notice what's happening there, we're quite disillusioned by the whole process has become quite stuck. So, what do we do now to move forward? We have a lot more conversations, not just candidates talking to you, but really listening and hearing what your concerns are and really figuring out how to move forward, figuring out how to build a local-based economy, how to make Pennsylvania work for everybody by looking at not just untaxing, but by taxing the right things and untaxing the good things. I was a little concerned to hear Senator Eichelberger talk against the property tax for school districts. We actually need to extend that, because for the paper and the presentation that I made at the request of the state legislature a number of years ago about property tax, if you in fact do not have property tax, it actually drives land hoarding and land speculation. We've compared states with that. So a land-based property tax that does not tax farmers on their income and their sales and on their small buildings. They have a lot of infrastructure in a small farm, a lot of buildings. You take those taxes off. And this can be one way to really drive what I feel is a really great market for organic small farm agriculture that people in the cities all around where we live are really demanding. So I'd like to see a lot of attention focused on how we build our small farm agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hartzok. Candidate Taylor?
Thank you. It's ironic that you speak about conflict resolution. So I facilitate custody litigation between people that don't have lawyers. When our legal services, free legal services, was closed in Jefferson County a year ago, people started flooding the court that didn't have lawyers, fighting over the thing that was most important in their lives, and that's their children. And it was difficult because they would stand in the hallways and they would yell at each other, and it certainly didn't work. They would move on to the next step, and the whole system became bottlenecked. And my judge asked me to sit down with these folks and facilitate a resolution, right? See what we can do. And in less than a year, we have an 85% settlement rate. And I finally figured out what the key was. When these folks come into the room, they're angry, they're upset, they're in silos, they're convinced that they are right and the other person is wrong, and there's a lot of emotions running. But when you open the meeting with asking them if they love their children more than they hate the other person, it stops them. and we start talking about their kids. We start talking about what's right by their kids. Should they still be able to play soccer even though they're not in the same house, right? I mean, it's a long conversation. And 85% of the time, we get to a point where they can agree. I believe that as Americans, we love our country a lot more than we hate the other side. I just passed a church with a messages outside on the way down here that said, "That person you hate, I don't. Love God." Right? We have allowed ourselves to stay in this space where it is easier to deflect and detest anybody with whom we disagree. I disagree with a lot of people. It doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make me right. It means that a conversation has to be had. As I've been traveling this district, a lot of people assume you're a Democrat, you must hate guns and coal. I don't hate guns. I grew up in Jefferson County, go shooting with my brother pretty darn often, which might make some Democrats nervous, but the point is, we don't have to live in these silos. And we have for a really long time, and admittedly, we've allowed our representatives to do the same. We negotiate every day, and we need to start electing people that are willing to do that work.
Thank you, Candidate Taylor.
Thank you.
Again, to reiterate what these two ladies here, it's not an either-or decision. They are both running for two different positions, one for the 5th Congressional District in Ms. Taylor, and one for the 9th Congressional District in Ms. Hartzok. So if you give us 5 minutes, we'll switch out to our last session of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last session this evening is going to focus on members of state committee, which, to be honest, until I started getting more interested in politics, I did not know what state committee was, nor did I know that it existed. So I had a learning curve. And I think many of you in the room might be in that same boat that I was in. So there's a couple of things I want to note this evening. We have a Democratic state committee, and we have a Republican state committee. Due to the number of registered voters in each of those categories, we have one seat open for the Democratic State Committee. We have incumbent Dennis Plain with us this evening. And we have 2 seats open for the Republican State Committee. Due to the fact that there's 2 seats open and the way that the State Committee works, it is 1 seat will be filled by a male and 1 seat will be filled by a female. All 4 of these candidates at the right side of the table will be new to the position. Incumbents are not running this time around. So this is a volunteer position. This is not an elected official position. What the state committee does is they're responsible for things like helping to develop Republican or Democratic policy, helping to raise voter awareness of candidates, helping to develop the next set of candidates. So I'm going to give each of them 2 minutes to introduce themselves. The order of the Republican candidates was randomly selected out of this lovely jar here. And then we will do 1 question for each of the candidates, because there's quite a few of them. And then we will give them 2 minutes to summarize at the end. So, and we will start this evening with Mr. Dennis Plain.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Plain, and I'm very happy to be here tonight, and thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many people interested in our democracy and our election. I teach American government here at Juniata College, and the thing I hammer home for all my students is to get involved. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, I don't care what policies you're interested in, but get involved, be engaged, and I'm really happy to see so many involved and engaged people here. I have been on the state committee, the Democratic State Committee, for the last 4 years. I'm running for a 2nd term. There is 1 state committee member serving the Democratic Party from Huntington County. So I'm not running against these fine gentlemen here. If you are registered as a Democrat, then when you get your ballot in the primary election, I hope you'll have a chance to vote for me. I've been in Huntington County for 10 years. I've been at the college the whole time. And I have a wife who works here at the college as well. She's in early childhood education. She also got her degree from Juniata. And then I have 2 kids, 6 and 7 years old. They're both in 1st grade here, so we're pretty well established in the community here. As a state committee representative, my job is really to be the voice of the Democratic Party for Huntington County. So to go to the state party organization and say, this is what's important to Democrats in Huntington County. And it's not always the same thing that's important to Democrats from Philly or to Pittsburgh. And so often those big population centers drown out the voices of the smaller counties. So my job is to be a strong advocate and say the people in Huntington County are worried about things like good jobs and good wages, making sure that everyone has their civil rights protected, and that what drives people in Philly and Pittsburgh is not necessarily what drives people in Huntington County. So that's a little bit about me and about my outlook on state committee, and with that, I'll turn it over to the next gentleman or gentlewoman.
Candidate Harford, we'd like to hear from you.
Good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Juniata College, Huntington County Farm Bureau, Huntington County Business and Industry, and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting the candidates forum this evening. I'm Joe Harford, and I live in Walker Township with my wife Karen and our 3 sons, Nathan, Matthew, and Michael. Nora is our 1.5-year-old granddaughter and a 7-month-old puppy named Lacey. I've not lost hope that we can reform the way our government conducts itself and affects our lives. I am committed to leading that reform. So tonight, I am happy to announce that I am running for Republican State Committee representing our beloved Huntington County. We all deserve a government that is committed to a better way of leading. As a member of this community, I support our right to demand a more effective and more efficient government. A government that does what it ought to do, does no more, does no less, and then gets out of your way. A government that allows us to grow, prosper, and acts as a partner in this process and not a foe. But that's not the government we have today. And I'm frustrated, just as I'm sure many of you are as well. I believe in standing up to the force of government and assert our God-given right to liberty. That's why I'm here. My personal philosophy is that we must all give back to the communities that we call home. Some of us volunteer, coach children's sports, or actively engage in our schools and our churches. My calling is to take my life, business, and education experience and put it to work for Huntington County on state committee. I am a business owner, and I have been a business owner for over a decade. I've been actively involved with the Leadership Council, the National Federation of Independent Businesses. I work with young entrepreneurs here at Juniata College and participate in economic development activities at the Southern Alleghenies Planning and Development Commission. I have the experience to be a leader, and I know we can do better. Better as a county, better as a state, and better as a country. Our community ought to be the leader for the principles of limited government, fiscal restraint, and conservative values. Every idea must start somewhere, and that somewhere is often local. That's why I'm running for this election. While I'm excited about all the ways that I've been able to contribute to our community, State Committee will allow me to represent you, your values, and make Huntington County the thought leader for this Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Hoover.
Good evening. My name is Bill Hoover, and I am also a candidate for the Republican State Committee from Huntington County. I'm a lifelong resident and farm owner in Warriors-Mark Township, along with my wife Deb, who's in the audience. I run that farm along with her for close to 40 years. Over the years, we've had dairy for a number of years. We also had a swine operation. For a brief time, we had Angus cow-calf herd, and for the last 15 years, we kind of slowed down. We just grow corn, wheat, soybeans, you-picket pumpkins, and you-picket sweet corn. And that allows me to have more time to participate in politics. I've been active in politics through the Republican Party for a number of years, and for a short while in the party, I, like Marylin, was the chairman for a few years. And to correct Amy slightly when she said none of us have been on state committee, as a chairman of the committee, I and Marylin have served on the Republican State Committee, but not in the elected position that we're seeking now, but as a chairman, you also have a seat on the Republican State Committee. Some of my thoughts on politics, and I know elected officials totally disagree with this. I've always believed that there should be competition in every election, every time. They don't like it because campaigning is a pain, but I think the voters should always have a choice. Sometimes the choices might not be good choices, but I think they should always have a choice. And along with that, I think the state committee people should foster a good relationship with the elected officials at all levels, and also have relationship with prospective candidates to help them along and have competition in the election. And a couple comments about the office of the state committee. The state committee has 3 meetings a year. The full state committee, plus several times a year, if necessary, there's caucus meetings. Huntington County is in what's called the Central Caucus, and they will have committee meetings, mostly when there's an endorsement to be made, a lot for statewide judge offices. I don't believe that there should be endorsements by the state committee, because I've seen, especially in judge elections, when the state committee endorsed, there's been candidates drop out that did not receive that endorsement, and I think that took away the choice from the voters in those elections. And one more comment, as we know, there's going to be one man, one woman elected to this position. I think that's an archaic rule. I think the voters of Huntington County should decide whether they want one man, one woman, 2 men, 2 women. Thank you.
Candidate Ehrhart? It should be on, yes.
Hello. Good evening. I'm Marylin Ehrhart, resident of Logan Township. I resided in Huntington County all my life except for approximately 12 years when work necessitated that our family live in other areas. I am a widow, mom to 1 son and 1 daughter, grandma to a granddaughter and 3 grandsons. I'm a graduate of Juniata Valley High School. I'm also a graduate of the Harrisburg-Stilton Vo-Tech Practical Nursing Program. My work experience includes clerical nursing, sales, motel manager, and former owner of a modular home sales business. I served on in many service organizations as a volunteer and chairman. I've also been a member of several organizations in the area, the Juniata Valley Lion, the Lions Clubs. I'm currently the president of the Huntington County Citizens for Human Life, which is an extension of the Pennsylvania Pro-Life. I'm an associate member of the chamber, and I'm also a member of the Petersburg Nazarene Church, where I served as a board member. I've been voting since I was 21. I have volunteered as a poll worker and served as an elected committee member. I've also served in Perry County. I've been serving as an elected Huntington County GOP committee member since 1992, having served 22 years, including 6 years or 3 terms as the county chairman. As Bill alluded here, Pennsylvania county chairman are members of state committee. They're elected by the registered voters in that county. Excuse me, they're elected by the committee members, whereas your state committee members are elected by the voters at large in that particular county. And this is based on the number of registered, like Republicans, for their state committee members. You serve a 2-year term. They have 3 meetings a year. They are divided into caucuses. I also served as a corresponding secretary for the Central Caucus during one of my terms as state committee member. I had lots of experience having served as county chairman, working the polls, working the county fair, working on campaigns for various elected officials. I feel that I am very qualified for the position. The job is a year-round position. It's
Thank you, Candidate Ehrhart. Candidate
very much.
Foster.
Good evening. evening, and thank you again, Amy and the rest of the staff, Junior College, ACDI, and the Chamber for this opportunity. As Amy said, my name is actually Melissa Sisney Foster. I'm a Mount Union Area High School graduate. From there, I went on to attend Centenary College, very similar to our own Juniata, located in northern New Jersey, graduating with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Equine Science and at the same time an Associate's degree in Business Administration. After college, I came back to Huntington and began working in the family business. First at our retail store, and then as marketing director, and finally an owner. In 2013, we also began working to improve our commercial real estate on the Route 22 corridor in Mill Creek, and have successfully built vacant properties, giving other small businesses opportunities. My husband Chris and I live in the top of Big Valley in Brady Township with our pet cows, and in my free time I retrain racehorses for new careers. Abraham Lincoln said, "Be sure to plant your feet in the right place and then stand firm." I love Huntington County. I'm vested in this community of family and business. Excuse me, allergies. I have served term limits on both the Raystown Visitors Bureau Board and the Huntington County Chamber of Commerce Board. Each of those organizations were strong and provided great opportunities and experience for me. Because of their clear vision, cohesiveness, and ability to have people from all walks of life working together for the betterment and growth of Huntington County, both through tourism and commerce. I'm also excited to announce my most recent appointment as one of the core team members for the Blueprint Community Initiative. I've been prepared with a strong foundation built on conservative values, common sense, hard work, perseverance, and dedication. We know the big issues our legislators face, as we've heard many of them addressed here tonight. I promise to bring to the table enthusiasm, fresh perspectives, and a can-do attitude. Abraham Lincoln also said, "You cannot build character and courage by taking away a man or a woman's initiative and independence." When I announced my intention to run for state committee, I've been asked countless times, "What are you running for?" I've always been happy to explain, but what disturbs me is when I have a conversation with someone who has become so discouraged in our system, they say, "I don't know why you would want to get involved, you can't make a difference anyway." It has become very clear to me that the purpose, we as a party might be able to reach out to more people, and in particular young people, if they have a bridge, someone they can relate to, see as one of their own. If I am blessed with the opportunity to be one of your voices on the Republican State Committee, I will aspire to be that liaison between Harrisburg and our community, uniting our party once again. Additionally, I look forward to the opportunity to work with our legislators and gain a clear understanding of what it takes to make that happen.
I would be remiss, thank you, Mr. Hoover and Ms. Ehrhart, for mentioning this. There is a third seat for the Republican State Committee and a second seat for the Democratic State Committee. And we do have at least one of those folks present with us this evening. Mr. Arnold McClure here in the front row, wave everybody on, is our Republican Committee Chair for Huntington County. Is Susan Hartman with us this evening? Did not see her. Oh, well, that explains everything. So they're not here this evening. But Susan Hartman does currently chair the Democratic Committee. So at this time, I'm going to ask you a question that I'd like all of you to answer. You'll have 2 minutes to answer the question, same system here. And in Dennis's case, when elected, what specifically would you like to work towards within the Democratic Party to raise awareness of party activity within Huntington County?
You know, going back to what I said in the opening, I think one of the biggest challenges working with Democratic politics, and I suspect it's not too dissimilar with Republican politics too, is that the state politics are driven really by Harrisburg and, by Philly and Pittsburgh. And so to gain exposure for the party in Huntington County, I think what we really need to do is bring more of our candidates in. It was great having some Democratic candidates for Congress here today. But that's really, I think, one of my roles is to talk to the statewide candidates and say, we've got some great people in Huntington County who would really love to hear what you have to say. Can you come to our county? Can we hear your voices? Can you participate in our forums? And can we get to know you better? Don't assume that people in Huntington County don't participate and don't care and don't vote. We have our voices on the Democratic Party. Each Democrat in Huntington County has the same weight in terms of a vote when it comes to statewide offices, and so it's very important that we bring candidates here to Huntington County so that we can get to know them better. So I think as sort of what to do to expand the party in Huntington County is really me being that voice at the state level saying, hey, we want to hear what you have to say because we're important and we vote.
Thank you. Mr. Harford?
The way that I look at the situation today is I'm very fortunate with the job that I have because I travel all over the Commonwealth. And in being able to get elected to this position, it now gives me a reason to reach out to those other Republican State Committee members that are in Delaware County, or in Montgomery, or Chester County, Erie, etc., and really build a coalition. Because I agree with Dennis, being able to have our local legislators and our federal legislators come here to Huntington County is a big deal, but we need to be able to reach out outside of Huntington County as well and look to those other areas and build those coalitions and also invite those folks to come here to Huntington County. I live 20 minutes away from one of the greatest resources on the planet, Lake Raystown. It is an absolutely beautiful place. I have a boat, we go out there on weekends, and it's a phenomenal opportunity that so many people in Pennsylvania do not even know exists. And so when you have the ability to reach out to those folks in Scranton and Harrisburg, et cetera, that are on the Republican State Committee, and invite them here and bring them here, I think that type of collaboration goes a long way. I think it's about being able to build relationships. It's about trust. It's about having honest conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, because we don't necessarily want to hear an opposing view. But being contrarian is not a bad thing. It's about challenging status quo and saying that we can make a difference if we so choose. Because if we continue to do what we have always done, you know the answer, you always get what you've always gotten. And for me, that doesn't make sense anymore. I'm willing to put my neck out there. I'm willing to be that person that argues. But more importantly, it's all about collaboration and bringing people here to Huntington County as well.
Thank you. Candidate Hoover.
One of the things I would like to see changed, I will refer back to a previous state committee member, the late Newt Taylor. I'm sure all or most of us have had the opportunity to read his letters about judge candidates in the state of Pennsylvania. An extremely large wealth of knowledge. If we all could have read those letters, we would have learned so much more than we ever knew about the statewide judge candidates. I think that is the one of the main jobs of the state committee person is to bring the information from the statewide or about the statewide candidates back to the county to inform all the voters of Huntington County so they can make informed decisions when they are voting on all the statewide candidates. So my hope, if I'm elected into this position, is probably through the Huntington Daily News, is to present more information about all the candidates, similar to what Newt Taylor did, but not just on judges, but on the candidates at the state and federal level. That's one of the changes I would like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hoover. Candidate Ehrhart.
One of the issues I have with the state committee position, not state committee position per se, but the county committee people, is the fact that half of the vacancies in the county are not filled. And it is a responsibility of the state committee members. You are a liaison between the county and the state committee. It is your responsibility to get that message out to the county. If we don't have a complete committee, then we're having a battle going uphill because we don't have the people serving that should be there, telling the rest of the county what is going on in state committee, who these candidates are, arranging activities that, as indicated, the county has a chance to meet our politicians on a higher level. I would like to work really hard to try to see the vacancies in the county committee filled, and of course work very closely with the media, trying to get the message out about our candidates, our meetings. We need to get it in the paper, which is not being done at this time. Make people aware of exactly what the responsibilities of the county committee are and how they can serve to get good Republicans elected into office. There are so many ways that they can help, and these are some of the goals that I have. I do enjoy the political arena. As a committee person, you had the opportunity to meet with the elected officials on the higher level and bring your input back to the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Foster.
I guess with being probably, as far as political involvement here at the table, I'm the youngest from that respect. And as I attend local committee meetings and as I do become more involved and I get more passionate about the things that we're trying to do here from the Republican Party, I see a real need to also get other young people involved. And I think that, you know, bringing that information back from committee to our local committee is very important, but I also think that we need to take it one step further and have a better outreach. And I believe that it should be our responsibility to, you know, to make that happen and be the voice from Harrisburg to the local committee and then to our community. And, you know, folks, candidates come and go. You know, 10 years, all of us may not be here, some of us may, but this party needs to stay strong, and we need to keep inviting people into it and getting them excited and passionate about the things that we believe in. And I think in order to do that, we have to be that voice. We have to be willing to go out there and tell our story. It's no different than being in small business. You need to be telling your story every day. You need to be getting people excited about what you're doing. And I feel that that's probably right now the strongest issue that I would like to see taken away until I know more about state committee.
Thank you. Lastly, I'd like to give each of you 2 minutes to tell us anything else that you may have come to mind, any party thoughts that you have, anything that you'd like the voters to remember as we head towards the primary.
Well, I want to just quickly end where I began, which is to go back to that civic engagement piece. And I know you guys are all here, which means that you're all going to go out and vote on May 20th. But talk to your neighbors and talk to your colleagues and get them out to the polls. It's really important that everyone go out and get their voice heard. You can request absentee ballots up through Tuesday is the last deadline for that. So again, be as engaged as possible. I'm happy to talk to you guys about what the Democratic State Committee is and what we do and what I think about it, but we can do that at the meet and greet right afterwards. Right now, we're the only thing standing between you and the refreshment, so I'm going to pass this along quickly, but I will be around to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Harford.
Two of the reasons why I'm here sitting at this table tonight are at the back of the room, my son Matthew and Michael. The other reasons are because I care about where I live and I want to have an opportunity to give back. As a small business owner, I'm challenged every day with making decisions about creating jobs, whether or not there's going to be a layoff, how are we going to deal with customers, and that's not what it's all about for me. There has to be something else. There has to be a way for me to take my experience and my passion and give it back to a community that I care about. Because I chose to live here. And choosing to live somewhere and being actively involved is different. It's a different type of dynamic. And it's one that you really have to begin to understand. When I take a look around this room, you're obviously committed and concerned. But what about everybody else in our community? What about your neighbors? What about the people that you work with? I don't know the answer to that question. But I know that I'm concerned as you are, and being able to take that energy and go out into the community and talk with people. And even if we have a difference of opinion, that's okay. There's not a problem with that. In fact, that's healthy for any civilization. But at the end of the day, it's about respect. It's about being able to respectfully disagree with one another. And the most important thing is being able to take energy and experience and giving back. And that's what I want to be able to do by being elected to the Republican State Committee for Huntington County.
Thank you. Candidate Hoover.
It's been said this evening by most everybody sitting at this table that the job of the state committee is to get information both ways, from Harrisburg and Washington to the voters in Huntington, and from the voters in Huntington back to the people in Harrisburg and Washington, the candidates and the people that are elected to represent us. I don't want to be like the rooster that thinks they make the sun come up. A state committee person does not vote in Harrisburg, in the capital. A state committee person does not vote in Washington in the capital. But the state committee person's job is to move information from the candidates, from elected officials, back to the voters, and also from the voters back to candidates and elected officials. That's our job. We don't make the votes, but we help the people that are making the votes in our capitals and in the voting booth, help to make them better informed votes, and that's what I want to do as a state committee person. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Ehrhart.
We are at a crisis in America. So many of our freedoms are being eroded. So many of the people you talk to or you hear about on TV do not know the candidates, they do not know the issues. We need to do whatever we can to get the message out that this is America, one nation under God, where freedoms may be lost if we don't get involved. And so my greatest desire at this point is to make sure that we help get that message out, that there is a need for people to get involved in the political arena, try to influence not only the voters, but our elected officials in whatever way, shape, or form we can. I want so much to see America return to the values that our forefathers established. Elections are the only way that we're going to get that accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, but not least, Candidate Foster.
I guess I would reiterate what I said earlier. I feel a real strong need to unite our party. We see it, we hear it all the time. You know, there are enough issues out there that need to be faced that we need to be united in our front. And I would like to be in whatever capacity I'd like to help see that through. Again, I also have a strong urge to encourage young people to get out there and to become more involved. Recently, we participated in the Mayfest event here as a party, and you know, the four of us sitting here were a big part of that day. What a great day it was just to tell our story that day to anybody that would listen to us. And that's what it's all about, is spreading that enthusiasm, spreading that passion to become more involved, to take an interest, and then to educate people on, you know, who they need to talk to, who's going to listen, who's down there fighting for, you know, their rights, their concerns, their beliefs. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And I would love to have that opportunity to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can have a round of applause for the